Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming today. Uh, well, let me first introduce myself. I'm sure most of you here have seen me around. I'm Polycryptoblog. Uh, name's Jason as well. You might know me as that. Um, handle business at Komodo, and today we are going to be talking about the tokenomics revolution, and I'm going to give you kind of a high-level overview of what we have planned for. Um, and talk about a bunch of different topics surrounding what we have proposed, including the vote that is up right now for the active user reward reduction. So, what is the KMD token? So, the topics about here that we're going to be talking about today. The first one will be what is the tokenomics revolution and the current issues that we have in our system. We've been around for 6 years and we've had a lot of opportunity, not just internally to see things that aren't working quite properly, but we also can glean insights from other projects that we have seen come and go in the cryptosphere. And we could take these lessons and apply them to our own project to kind of evolve it to a more modern standard. The next thing we'll be talking about today is the strategy change. This is heavily on the marketing side, and soon enough, Otto will be giving, and the marketing team will be giving a presentation about what they all have planned. But today I'll just be going over a small high-level overview. The next will be the supply side economics changes that are being proposed. Following that will be the demand side economics changes and things that we have in mind to increase demand for the KMD token and interest in the KMD ecosystem overall. And last one is just other changes that will be happening as well as part of this whole tokenomics revolution. So what is the KMD tokenomics revolution? It's an attempt to correct these laws. Some of the flaws that are being considered, obviously, is the active user reward reduction, a change in consensus. What kinds of consensus should we go? Should we go proof of stake, delegate proof of stake, or proof of authority? Should we have masternodes or not? And this is really to start kicking off a discussion with the entire community about what's the best path forward. Some of us, including myself, don't think what has our current system really lends much to the future prosperity of Komodo, and it would be best if we could try to figure out what's the best way forward. So some of the current issues in our ecosystem is, first, the lack of any sort of tokenomic consideration during the inception of Komodo. Having was around specifically, we didn't, give any economic consideration. We kind of, just watched what other projects were doing. We wanted to take the 5% staking reward that was from Bitcoin Dark and kind of apply it to, the new chain Komodo in a unique way. But the actual effects of this just weren't being considered, and no one in the community at the time really thought much of it. Now, 6-7 years later, we see these things have a lot more of an impact than we originally realized when it was first created. The second major issue in our system is, things have changed in the entire crypto space since Komodo was created. Komodo was created before the advent of DeFi, before Solidity took over as the #1 smart contracting language, before all the different blockchain ecosystems and their unique value propositions that we see today were even thought of. And a lot of these changes have been very beneficial for crypto, but we've been kind of left out of them because we don't have the right tech stack entirely to be able to create these applications, as well as bring in developers and other interested parties into the ecosystem to be able to use and develop. The third major issue is lack of clear direction, communication, and call to action. This is an issue both on the team side and on the community side. A big part of this has to do with decentralization. We're just all over the planet. We all come from different cultures, different backgrounds, different ways of thinking. So it kind of creates a little bit of a Tower of Babel situation where you have so many different points of view, and trying to find a path forward that benefits everybody is very difficult, and is one area that we hope to improve upon greatly over the coming years as part of this tokenomics revolution. Meetings like this are meant to foster thought and discussion about what's the best way for Komodo to go forward, and to have the community input to decide that. And the last issue in our system, and this is a pretty prevalent issue, is consolidation instead of decentralization. Komodo started, pretty much as a community-style project. Many of us, started in as volunteers. It's typically the best way to get involved into Komodo is that you build something, and people, start seeing it and contribute, and then, before you know it, you end up being part of the community, and then possibly even part of the team later on. And when this happens, the community tends to look towards these certain individuals, whether it's myself or CA or James and stuff, as kind of the decision makers about everything. And this is something we want to kind of try to break away from. It's that while the team members and stuff who contribute quite a bit should have a say in how things are done, especially since more often than not they're the ones doing it, the community really needs to be brought into this, and we need to spread out the decision-making power amongst everybody. So the first topic to talk about is the strategy change, and what we're going for is a wallet-first approach. So a wallet-first approach, it is being chosen really kind of some common sense measures. Everyone in crypto uses a wallet, right? You can't really be in crypto without a wallet. Additionally, in terms of competition, there's only maybe a dozen or 2 dozen actually competitive wallets, a couple hundred in total compared to cryptocurrencies, which are number in the tens of thousands. As I've mentioned here in the slides, so the wallet is pretty easy to understand. People know what it is. It's not like trying to explain atomic swaps to people. I can't tell you how many people I've encountered in different conferences and meetups and such that when I mention DEX, immediately they go to an AMM style DEX in their mind, and it's hard to break them out of that paradigm. But a wallet, is pretty ubiquitous across every single cryptocurrency. Another major part of this change will be setting daily active users as a primary metric. And this kind of works along a marketing funnel type of thought line, is that the more time that a user spends in the wallet using different features and functions, even if they aren't specifically Komodo functions, the more likely they are to use the Komodo specific functions at some point in time. It's kind of like marketing through exposure. So the amount of time people spend in the wallets and in the applications matters, and they are correlated to the fees. So we should really be trying to focus on getting people in the wallet and keep them there as long as possible, which will then eventually translate to fees. However, just focusing on the fee aspect directly without taking into account how many users we have and how often they use, it kind of ends up being difficult. We're kind of focusing on the trees and missing the forest there. Before I go into the slide on the supply side and demand side economics, with the wallet first approach, there's a bunch of marketing plans and such that Otto and the rest of the marketing team will be going over at a later time. That was just to kind of give you guys a high level overview. So next, with the supply side and demand side economics, first going to go over a little, so just a brief, definition, supply side economics. Supply side economic theory, it basically dictates that incentives matter, and people need to be incentivized to supply to the economy. That higher taxation is bad off because it disincentivizes people to produce more goods, and that inflation is primarily a monetary phenomenon and not a phenomenon of the market. So, meaning that policy has a great effect in inflation. So, applying this to our current tokenomics, can we say that our incentive mechanism's working? Is the 5% good incentive to get new users? Is the ratio of incentive for that 5% proportional to what's being done? And this can also be applied on the mining end as well. Is like, are they the amount of work and cost going into mining? Is that, is it incentivized enough to keep the system going, and not just that, but attract and grow? The second point here is the current emission effectively a high tax through inflation? So regarding this point, I know I've made some arguments over the past couple days, but just to catch people up who haven't seen them, is that when you produce a bunch of coins, it's harder and harder to be able to increase price. And, essentially this inflation on the coin supply, unless we have enough demand in terms of like fiat dollars to take over the, to overcome the coin production, then new coins won't, or old coins won't get by, which then effectively lowers price, because the coins produced through the active use reward have essentially zero cost to produce. And is this a factor within our control to change or affect greatly? And the answer to that is clearly yes, right? This is a code change, essentially, a pretty easy one. The next point here is about demand-side economics. So just kind of some bullet points about the definition. Demand-side economic theory is all about economic growth, and it's best produced by producing products that have high demand, which is kind of common sense. The next point is that utilizing these products and services leads to creation of more products and services. And that a slowdown in the economy requires an influx of demand to keep going. So it's very much like a flywheel. A flywheel will keep going until friction slows it down, and it needs more energy in the system to keep on spinning. In the real world, that's typically done through subsidies or government, QE and injections of cash. In crypto, typically some sort of basically influx either from the developers or through some sort of DAO grant program or such is what does that. So applying this to our own tokenomics, so how can we create more demand and utility for the Komodo coin? And is it worth adjusting emission to create a situation where the consumption of the Komodo coin or utilization of it is greater than the amount of coins produced? And to that point, I would say yes, definitely. That's kind of what we need to do to be able to increase interest, users, price, and so on. And the last point, since demand is a highly variable thing, how can we create this consistent demand and avoid speculative bubbles? Now, this one's kind of more of an open-ended question. I think economists have been arguing this for quite some time. And, the best way, as far as I can see, to do that is you have services and such that have a constant consumptive demand, which even if the demand drops off due to the previous consumption, it takes any negative effect will actually take longer to take hold. So the next point here is about their current proposal, the active user reward reduction. So why is this happening? So over the past year, I was tasked with trying to figure out what is wrong with our system. Obviously we need more demand side factors. That's kind of undisputable. Nobody is arguing that. But demand side is only one part of the equation. If you're focusing on demand so much, once the demand's gone, then if the supply side isn't set correct, then that usage and utility of said coin will continue to drop down until essentially the price trends to zero. In Komodo, our current coin emission is around 4.7%, and it's going to continue to grow for the next 7 years. In comparison, Bitcoin's coin emission is 1.8% falling. Ethereum, due to its addition of EIP 1559 and it's half of their transaction fee burning or gas fee burning, they're actually don't even have inflation; it's deflationary. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. Many people got into crypto for that model specifically that they found in Bitcoin, a deflationary currency. The next point is that our excessive coin inflation is only slightly curtailed by non-claiming. So around 4.6 million coins were produced last year through the active user reward, 1.6 through mining. However, the max possible of coins through the active user reward is 6.8. As you can see, this is quite a high amount of coins that are being produced every year. And the coins produced through the active user reward, as opposed to the mining and notary nodes, it's nearly 3 times as much. So reduced emission then leads to demand for already existing coins, which will increase the average cost basis of the coins. And I keep saying this argument over and over again, is that it's easier for 575,000 coins, which is the number that would be if both the active user reward reduction goes down to 0 and the mining reward or staking, if it changes to that, will be one coin than it is for 6.2 million coins, which is what was produced last year and will be continuously rising. So, I mean, that's just kind of a common sense type of thing. And as somebody who has been to the different conferences, meetups, met with businesses, investors, all that, it's very hard to convince somebody, when you don't have a way of soaking up this demand, because people get into coins to hopefully see their investment rise or to use the coin as it's supposed to be, through its utilization, no matter what coin it is. In our system, with so many coins being produced, it's very hard to sell when if they purchased and it's a high probability that their investment will go down. And this is kind of based off of any marketing efforts and such has an extremely high bar to hit that will constantly increase as long as this active user reward continues. It's 4.6 million this past year, and because the supply has increased and the active user reward is percentage, even if we kept the same percentage, it's going to be many more coins produced. So the effects of all this are demand side efforts are quashed and destroys any incentive to KMD. I just went over that. It drains the liquidity across exchanges because people create these coins for pretty much free, and then it doesn't really matter what they sell them at because the cost of production is essentially zero. And it also leads to demoralization. Like we could bring in millions of dollars a year. Our marketing team have people buy coins, do all these things, but it doesn't translate to price, which is what everyone kind of looks at. And as much as might be right or wrong, or no matter how you feel about it, price tends to be one of the best marketing tools. Many people find new coins through different sites like CoinMarketCap and Coin Paprika and such, and they don't really go down that far down the list, right? So increasing price and getting higher on these listing sites definitely will have a positive effect. Um, and the last point of this active user reward reduction, um, the negative effects of such, is the users individually often lose to inflation. You would have to claim pretty much perfect, every month around the same time to just beat the inflation by 0.36%. And that is, I can tell you just from experience and looking at our claim rates, um, people often aren't making that. They aren't getting there. Um, and this could just, it's not necessarily a fault of the user. It's just, sometimes you forget to claim, but the problem with that is then you essentially are then losing to an inflation tax. So I've compiled the arguments against the active user reward reduction that have been said by the community, and could be really summed up into 3 points: short-term dumping, uh, an ideological change, and uh, what if this proposal fails? So short-term dumping, yeah, it is definitely a valid concern. Um, people who might disagree with this proposal, will possibly dump, and as something to take in consideration. However, for the long-term benefit and growth of Komodo, is it better to get that dump done now, or do we have 7 years of dumping of millions of coins with the same exact situation happening at block 7,777,777 when the active user reward shuts off anyways? The second point brought up, primarily by Computer Genie, is this is an ideological change. That Komodo isn't what it used to be, and I would argue that could be a good thing as well. One of the biggest problems that we've had at Komodo uh, internally, not so much the team, but just like as a project, is that we're focused on way too many things, and narrowing our focus down to the wallet and DEX allows us to produce a product that is, can be highly competitive amongst, the top of, products in the field at different wallets, whether that's Garda or Atomic Wallet or Exodus and so on. And then, what if it fails? Well, I would say we'd be no worse off currently, and in fact, we very well may be better off because if the active user reward reduction passes, and then that means the coins that are produced after the fact actually have a cost basis that is non-negligible. It will be tied to the price of the cost of mining, or the cost of staking divided by how many are competing to do such. So proposal 2 is the consensus change. The consensus change proposal, we will have a good bit more time to deliberate upon this as a community, but just to go over the 4 options really quick, one is a proof of stake switch with a block reward reduction, the same with master nodes. The third choice is to keep our current notary node system but reduce the Komodo reward, and the final is no change. So after this current proposal about the active user reward is completed, then we will start deliberating as a community about the different options presented for the consensus change. So consensus change really goes back to one of the fundamental arguments that we see in the crypto space: proof of stake, versus proof of work. So the pros proof of work is that electric consumption deters many attackers. If your network requires a massive amount of electricity, such like Bitcoin, it's pretty much not going to be able to be attacked except by like nation states. It's a proven system. We definitely have advocated for it at Komodo, for quite some time. And the attack vectors are known. We've created a system with deep how to mitigate one of the known attack vectors and such. So it's a pretty much baseline system. It's been here since Bitcoin, as everyone knows. Some of the cons of proof of work, though, is that the global electric price right now is pretty high. I took a look online; it's around 14 cents a kilowatt hour, and even in areas that are cheaper, like my own is about half that price. The ability to mine is severely curtailed. There's only one Equihash miner currently that's profitable, which is their Z15 model, Bitmain Z15 model. It costs $8,000 at base price, and that's not including shipping. That's not including any tariffs or VAT that you have to pay. And the entire production of those miners now is limited to one producer. Silicon dropped off there, and the several other smaller companies have not released a new hash miner. One of the issues that we face, and we face this in our current system, is with pool switching. So whenever a certain coin ends up being profitable, pools will switch their hash rate to that coin, which causes difficulty spikes, which then translates to long block delays. There have been times in Komodo network that we've had to wait nearly an hour to get a block due to one of these difficulty spikes. And then the fourth point is block hunting. In Komodo, it's a little bit bigger of an issue, but this can actually happen on any any chain. We see block hunting also could be, I guess you call it comparative to something like miner extracted value as well. Basically, what you're choosing to go into blocks and what order, for one's own personal benefit. Regarding next, the proof of stake, pros. It requires a coin lockup. You actually have to, put your coins in a staking mode to be able to utilize it for the purposes of generating new coins. There's really no difficulty stalling because there's no real switching. The difficulty level on a proof of stake coin is pretty low. The attacks require an economic cost, that goes up, as more coins are purchased out the market, which tends to be a very positive economic effect for the holders of the existing coins, and as negligible electric costs. The cons of it has different attack profile. I'm sure many here have heard of the nothing stake attack. There's also stake grinding, and different attacks on just different variations of the proof of stake mechanism. It has an increased possibility for centralization. This is one of the major criticisms of proof of stake, that the rich get richer. But I'd argue also that it's found in proof of work as well, just not as prevalent. And the last point is the lack of stakers can lead to a chain bricking, which we've actually seen with several dead chains. A good example would be Bitcoin Dark. You can have enough excess coins to try to restart the chain. You might be able to get it going, but if there isn't enough stakers, the chain doesn't move. Which very similar to mining, but it's easier for a miner to pick up, plug their machine in and start mining than it is to get existing coins maybe on from a dead chain or so. So there has to be enough stakers to keep the network going, is basically what that says. Regarding the Masternode architecture, this also brings in coin locks, which is good for economic growth. But there is, I would like to warn people that lockups are only good up to a point, right? Eventually, people want to sell, right? They have a price or a time period that they want to sell by. So while it does pull coins off the market, it is not a cure-all solution. Masternodes can also be used to drive demand. I had mentioned the possibility of a system of limiting a masternode to one per person. This would greatly mitigate Sybil attacks, which are one of the top complaints against masternode systems. And this would drive demand because we have currently a very limited amount of people, who hold our, Komodo coin supply. Or possibly like only under 1,000 for 99.9% of the supply. This will incent new people to, purchase coins to start a masternode, as that they can get a large percentage of the reward. And then we can also use this to technologically tie in Komodo in with the DEX. The Masternode architecture can be used to facilitate relay nodes, which currently, right now, there is no incentive to run DEX relay nodes, which will help with the order matching, that the DEX network requires. So the demand side changes. So here's some of the demand side proposals that we, have in mind. And they are broken down in two categories. One is internal demand, which is utility for already existing users, and external demand, utility that brings in new users into our ecosystem. So for internal demand, a lot of them centers around a concept of burn whitelisting. And this can be applied with staking, masternodes, identity, be applied to the DEX as well. But essentially, it breaks down to, as you you burn a certain amount of Komodo, then you have access to a certain function. Staking is like we can add a consensus mechanism that your public key has to be on have burned a certain amount of coin to a certain address, to be eligible for staking a block. Same type of idea can be done with masternodes, with identity as well. These are smaller demand mechanisms, but they add up, in summation to produce a larger effect. In terms of external demand, one of the things I've been pushing forward is a preferential fee rate for atomic DEX, that we can use the same type of whitelisting idea to give a drastically reduced rate, DEX fee rate, which is one area that we can use to compete with other types of decentralized exchanges. The next part deals with partial DEX fee burn. So we do have plans to take part of the DEX fee and purchase Komodo and burn it. So that should also help. And it's labeled under external demand because it is the party, the wallet, is purchasing it for a specific function, but doesn't necessarily mean that the person, or the wallet, excuse me, the wallet / DEX itself needs it to run. It's being done external to the system. And the last one is something I've just mentioned kind of recently, is a KMD Cosmos-based sidechain with unidirectional bridging. Unidirectional because it will require Komodo to be burned, and since it won't be able to come back, that effectively lowers the supply that can head to market of the KMD UTXO chain. And this will also give us the ability to utilize EVM style contracts to interact with the Cosmos ecosystem and their IBC network, as well as bring in new developers, new talent, people who are more used to that way of doing things into our ecosystem. And this can be made deflationary in a very similar way that Ethereum does, with burning half of the TXVs. And it gives the use for the Komodo, Cosmos as gas, but if you remember, that can only be produced with the Komodo UTXO chain, with coins being bridged over. Other changes, so one of the big ones is governance. There have been a lot of complaints with the one coin, one vote system, which is definitely understandable. There's also been recommendation for a one person, one vote system, which definitely would be good as well. It has some issues that need to address, just like the one coin, one vote system. But the community will be getting together and figuring out how we want governance to go in the future. Because obviously, right now, there's definitely complaints on about the way things are currently ran. The next point is nucleus. So nucleus, CA will give a lot more technical description I will hear, but the high level of it is that an improved osmosis, but for the Komodo ecosystem, and there will be an airdrop for Komodo holders. Last point here is that crypto conditions development and DPAL 2. So projects that currently use crypto conditions, we will continue to support, provide backwards compatibility. Is the same with delayed proof of work. We will provide a way that people can still have their 51% attack protection, and projects who may wish to migrate to the KMD Cosmos chain will be able to do so. We'll provide the tools for them to do that. So some final thoughts here about the tokenomics revolution. These proposed changes definitely mark a shift to where we're going. We're going to be focusing on what works, getting our products out, and then trying to fix what doesn't. We keep hamstringing ourselves with various different things, and I think it's time really just focus on our strengths. Let's get one solid product out there, start using it to increase our user base and grow our ecosystem, and that overall will translate to a greater demand for KMD. And then the point of self-interest and versus the greater good. With this current vote, everyone needs to ask themselves if keeping the active use reward will strengthen or weaken our economy and our value proposition. Now, this is a personal question for people, and I totally understand the self-interest argument where you want to produce more coins, but producing more coins, if the coins aren't worth anything, it doesn't really have value. It's just something to keep in mind with when you decide to vote in this current proposals process. So thank you guys for taking a listen to this high-level overview of the Komodo tokenomics changes. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them at this time.